This meeting will now come to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Carlett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Binsbacher.
Here.
Councilmember Patana.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Finn.
Here.
Councilmember Hunt.
Here.
Councilmember Leone. Here. And Council Liaison Bowden.
Here. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council special meeting of April 19th, 2016. We have one item on our study session agenda tonight, and that is proposed auto district identity creation, branding, signage, and streetscape improvement project. Turn it over to our city manager, Carl Swenson.
Well, Mayor Carlett, I think you've said it all right here. So, and that is what we have to present. Obviously, the auto district area is one of our most important business districts in the city, and much as the council has directed the improvements in the P83 area. You asked earlier this year if we would work with the auto dealers to see if there might be a moniker, a branding that we could come up with for the auto district as well. And so what we have to present tonight is the preliminary findings of the group that's been working on it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott White, our Economic Development Services Director. Scott.
Great, thank you, and pleasure to be before you, Mayor and City Council. I would like to start by introducing Adam Perillo of Kimley Horn. Kimley Horn is the consultant that, following a request for proposals process, was selected to help the city in terms of coming up with some of the concepts that we'll be going over tonight. So for purposes of background, business retention and expansion is a very important part of the Economic Development Services mission and part of the EDIS, Economic Development Implementation Strategy. We have a lot of great businesses in the city of Peoria, and being mindful of how we can always help them in terms of growing the business and hopefully expanding their businesses is very important. We spend a lot of time and effort in terms of business attraction, but we also want to spend equal time with business retention and expansion efforts. So this is exactly that, working with the auto dealers within the Peoria Auto District to understand what their issues are, how can we help them be successful, looking at their strengths, their perceived weaknesses, opportunities, and what are some looming threats, so that we want to be eyes wide open, looking forward to make sure that the auto brands and the auto district in Peoria continue to be as successful as they have been. So the auto dealers located in our auto district are, as Carl mentioned, a very important part of our economy, generate approximately 20% of our general fund revenues. So we have a keen interest in terms of making sure that they're strong, stay strong well into the future. They also, as a industry sector, are one of the largest employers in our city. So it makes a lot of sense for us to spend some time really focusing on that industry sector. One of the things that we looked at as part of this process is what other auto malls are planning to be created or expanded in the West Valley, because that can cause market share erosion. And so we have to be aware of that. We have to understand, even though we have a very successful auto district, much like when we looked at P83 with a very successful and important entertainment district at the time, how can we make it better? So that we always maintain our market share and we always have the potential for growth. So that's really the root of this, is how do we do that, what do we need to focus on, and what are the opportunities? So as part of doing that, we compiled a group of stakeholders. And so we had a number of stakeholder meetings, and the stakeholders included the Economic Development Services Department, included the Engineering Department, Planning Department, Police Department, the auto dealers themselves, and some of the non-auto interests that are located on Bell Road in the target area, essentially from Loop 101 west to the city boundaries. And it was really important that we have this composition in the stakeholder group, because every one of those city departments have a role in ensuring the success of the auto district over time. Everything from issues that are relevant in the day-to-day operations of the auto dealers, such as getting permits for special events, as manufacturers roll out new promotions for new brands and new car deals, all the way to policing efforts and how can we expand police presence, for safety and for other issues that the auto dealers expressed an interest in having more presence. And from an economic development perspective, again, making sure that we're doing everything we can from a business retention expansion perspective. So the stakeholder group was comprised with these interests and met several times through the process. So in the fall, we really started this in earnest. We've held a total of 3 stakeholder meetings, very well attended by all of those interests that were just identified. We also took some of the concepts, and the key word there is concepts. What you're going to hear tonight are very conceptual, taking into account what we heard from the stakeholder groups as what's the vision, what do we need to do to really dial this up to the next level, and taking into account things that are going on in the West Valley and perceived threats occurring in the West Valley in terms of other auto areas. And just how can we make this more of a sense of place, and how can we make this more of a celebration of the success of the auto dealers that we have. We also had a presentation in front of the Economic Development Advisory Board to make sure that we get their input. And then we had a community meeting. That was actually held at Larry H. Miller Toyota and was well attended as well. So really tonight is now our opportunity to share with you some of the ideas and concepts, all of which can change, all of which can be amended. And with the understanding that a lot of what you're going to see tonight is predicated on a next phase if council decides it wants to go forward in this fashion to prove up the concept, prove up constructability, which we'll cover in more detail in our next steps. So with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Adam and have him walk through the next series of slides and explain to you what we're trying to accomplish and how do these concepts here relate to the feedback that we got from the stakeholder group. Adam?
Thank you, Scott. Mayor, Council, first of all, thank you very much for letting us work on this project with you. We're very excited about this project. There's a ton of opportunity here. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. I've been working with some other folks from my office and a couple of sub-consultants that we have that are very specialized in this kind of work. A lot of car dealership work we've done in the past. We have had a lot of meetings on this project with all of the car dealers involved. Virtually all of them have attended the meetings. We've gotten a lot of input from them. The map that we have in front of you is the corridor that we're talking about. The 101 is on the right, Sun City's on the left. As you can see, there's 18 car dealerships through this area, all in Peoria. It's the largest concentration of car dealerships. All brands are there except for BMW in the valley. It's one of the highest producers in the valley. Almost all of the frontage, as you can see on Bell Road, is car dealership. There are a couple of things that are shaded there to the north where it's got the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit that aren't car dealerships. There's an apartment complex, there's a mini storage facility, there's a supermarket, a little bit of retail, but for the most part, this corridor is dominated by car dealerships. Both ends of the car dealers row on the Sun City end, we're talking, we talked about with the dealers a sense of arrival, a large beacon element. So you'll see 2 diamonds on either end of the row. That's what those diamonds are for. The circles in between are the major intersections. These are areas to celebrate, to raise awareness, to create an icon. That's one of the things that the dealers requested when we were going through this. They need a brand identity. They need a large icon element that folks from across the valley would know and relate to and understand, so they know where they're at. They asked that the display be closer to the road so that their inventory, their product is celebrated more, and that the corridor is unified so that there's consistency throughout the corridor of how things are displayed, how lights are used, the colors that are used, some of the hardscape material, so that it really feels as though it's one united consortium of dealerships. The 101 is to the right. Getting folks off of the 101 onto this, raising the awareness of this on the 101 was another thing that they brought up as a concern of theirs. If we move forward, this is a plan view of one section of the road. This is actually Larry H. Miller, the Toyota dealership, is on the bottom of the page. On the top of the page are the Mazda dealership, or the Mazda dealership. So we're showing to the right some idea imagery of what this would look like, kind of the feel for it. We had two different concepts, and this was the concept direction that everyone wanted to go in. There's an X that you see going across the intersection. Those would be large steel structure to raise awareness, big, tall, something that folks would know throughout the valley, a big icon element. If you look at the inspiration imagery to the right-hand corner, you see these two steel tubes going over the road. That's actually constructed in Houston in the Galleria district. It's public art throughout that district. They have those two stainless steel tubes going across 6 lanes of traffic, median, bike lanes, planter strips, sidewalks. The tube goes across all of them. Semis go underneath it on all 3 lanes. This idea that we have, that we're at right now, has been constructed other places. This is a constructible idea that we're sharing with you. Unifying the median, getting it so that, you know, a row of palm trees, something that makes a big statement, something tall but doesn't block the view. Getting the cars up closer to the road. You see we have a curvilinear wall. Also, we're showing the plan view on an aerial. The only thing that would be messed with on the dealerships, or changed, I should say, is that first row of parking. Now, yes, there's detention in there. There's all kinds of things that occur from the back of curb to that first row of parking. This would be affecting that. And we spoke to the dealers about the fact that we're bridging the line of private property and what's within the right-of-way, and they understood that and thought that that was fine if easements could be drawn up in order to unify the display of their product throughout the corridor. So our thought is a nice hardscape wall that presents the product uniformly throughout the corridor, a low planting, unified signage throughout the corridor. The signage would be on private property, and then display pads on the corners that celebrated feature material. If we go to the next slide, this is a section through Bell Road. So this is the palm trees in the median. We get the lights for the road in the median with the arms coming out to light the road. So we cut down on visual clutter on the sides of the road. Plant the median. There could be some banner displays in the median for the district, not for the individual dealers. So we're celebrating this whole district. On the side, you see how we've elevated the cars and put them on hardscape so they're a little above. Folks are walking right in front of them. We move the trees back a little bit so the car, the product, the display is up closer, but we still have a tree-lined road. We still have trees down the median and trees down both sides of the road. The finish and feel is a modern, sleek, automotive, steel, blue, LED lights, not garish, not in your face, but very classy and simple.
Can I ask you a question before you move on? You've got the cars up on pedestals, so in the previous slide you showed the wall. Are they actually above the wall? Then you're building up the grade level?
Yes, so that wall would be the edge of where the car is showing. So there's not a wall blocking the car. The wall is more, if you were walking, there would be a small pony wall along the side of you, but that's what the car is actually sitting on.
So the grade level behind the wall
is up higher.
Is actually raised?
Yes.
Okay, Thanks.
And that could change. It could, you know, some dealerships, maybe the car is a little lower than the sidewalk, maybe it's level, maybe it's above. It depends on what what's happening with the grade, how we can make it fiscally responsible. We don't want to move all of the earth for no reason, but we do want to keep it consistent. So if that wall is a retaining wall, if it's holding the car up, if it's holding it down, just how it's being addressed, we just want the consistency. And in some cases, dealers want their product up high, so you're looking at. Other places, they want it down low, so they see the whole field.
And, you know, just a point on that is, through those stakeholder meetings, that became very important to the car dealers. Right now, as we drive down Bell Road and you look, what you see is sidewalk and then a lot of high-profile landscaping that blocks your view corridor into the dealerships. And they weren't desirous of that continuing, but rather bring the product to the street, bring the inventory to the street, and then, you know, celebrate it in a way through the landscaping so that you're not blocking their inventory, but you're highlighting it and emphasizing it. And that's where some of this concept came from.
A lot of times, car dealerships are treated like any other parking lot, and it's not the same as any other parking lot. Those aren't public vehicles. Those are inventory. Those vehicles are for sale. That's not a shopping center parking lot full of folks' individual personal cars. So thinking of how they're treated and how they're viewed would be a forward-thinking way to do it, as opposed to screening this thing that's very important to everyone. So this is a very rudimentary concept of getting this element. We don't know what this element is yet. We're very early in the concept. It could be different things, but crossing the intersection, making a big, bold statement that folks from across the valley and around remember whatever this element is, whatever this icon feature is. This that we're showing here are steel tubes similar to the ones in the inspiration photo up above, which is in Houston, constructed as I stated. This is treating the end of that element a little more so that maybe it addressed the display pad and embraced the cars that are being displayed on the corner and celebrated. Close-up of that. Again, these are concepts. This can change, this can adapt, this can do all kinds of things. This is the minor display pad. So you've got a major display pad on a signalized intersection. This would be at a driveway entrance into the actual, so just a curb cut, not a signalized intersection, but a place where they could display the two cars on the side, and all of the display pads throughout the corridor would be the same, and you get that Disneyland effect of this reoccurring theme that, because it's at all of them, it unites the whole corridor. These are some concepts for different signs. The signs that are out there right now, the monument signs for the individual dealerships, are lower signs. They're not as large. They're different. Each one of them is different at the dealerships. Now, the actual Ford, Nissan, Honda, those are very, very, very brand specific, and manufacturers are going to dictate exactly that panel of the sign. But the base of the sign can be unified throughout the district. These signs are showing 20 feet tall. There is a new car dealership that was recently constructed near this. It's a Cadillac dealership. It has a 20-foot high sign in front of it with a black base. If you drive by there, you might recognize it. That's the scale of sign that we're talking about.
And again, these would be signs that the individual dealers would pay for and would be placed on their property. But what we would do, and this would be through the planning department, we'll touch on this a little bit later, we would create the environment through a overlay zone or a planned area development zone that creates the opportunity for these new signs to be constructed, much like the overlay zone concept for the P83 district.
And then the individual retailers would be required to comply? How would that work?
I think the way we're thinking of it is that we would give them the opportunity if they choose to use it. We wouldn't be looking for this to be mandatory, but if they're looking to build new monument signage, we would want it to comply with these specifications for the uniformity of the look within the district.
Sure.
They very much recognize throughout the process that it will be stronger if they all get on board and participate than if there are gaps in it.
Right.
So they would like for everyone to, and all of them that we spoke to were very much behind the concept and were looking forward to it advancing.
Good.
That's the last I have on the concept. If anyone has any questions, I would love to talk about it more. If you want to go back a slide.
Council, questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you, who did you talk with at the dealerships? General managers, the ownership? Who did you have your conversations with regarding these changes?
It was all over the board. There were some general managers that came. There were also owners that came. We did not talk to Larry H. Miller. He was the owner of his dealerships. He sent his general managers from those stores, and they very much were going over everything with Larry. The Ford dealership, the owner of that store, was there. I know the second place person to Burge came to a number of the meetings for the Lexus dealership. So it was kind of all over the board, but we did have a lot of participation from them.
Okay. And you know, with the new signage, and then I'm sure that as you want to move those cars closer to the street, there's going to have to be some modification of their parking lot, which will also be a cost to the dealership. Are they on board with that?
Yes, they were on board with that. We were very clear that there would be a shared cost in this, and that some of these improvements would be on their private land. And somehow, as we moved forward, and it got into what's this going to cost? How much is it going to cost me? What percentage am I going to have to pay? And we were very frank with them that we did not have those numbers at this point. This was at the conceptual stage, and if they were behind the direction it was going and wanted to see it move forward, let's move forward with it and see where it went. But we did not know at this point. But they agreed that, yes, a shared cost would be something that if this could get pulled off, they would be willing to participate in.
Councilmember Edwards?
Thank you, Mayor. Adam, can you go back to the first slide that had the overview of the whole district? Actually, one more forward. There you go. The one that had the freeway and all that. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so a couple questions. So you're talking about freeway signage. What kind of freeway signage was talked about?
Standard MUTCD sign. So you've seen, I'm sure, blue signs, green signs, brown signs. What we showed them in renderings was a blue sign, which is the standard retail informational signage in the MUTCD manual on an interstate. It wasn't a special sign, it wasn't a lit up sign, it wasn't an LED panel. It was no different than a standard.
So it's the standard like ADOT sign for the
Yes.
restaurants that get off the freeway saying
Yep.
these are the restaurants that are coming up. Okay,
Yes.
So we're not talking billboards?
Nope.
Okay, no lighted signs. Okay, perfect there.
We were extremely explicit with them that there will not be billboards. This is not going to go anywhere with billboards, and big crazy lights are not going to be well received.
Okay, thank you.
And
then-
actually, on that point, I expressly threw that on the table and asked them if that was important to them, and they interestingly said no.
Okay. And then the second question is, on the north side of the road, where you have like the, I believe it's Albertsons and some of the small restaurant chains, there would obviously, we'd want that consistency of that as well. Were they on board? Because they're not part of the auto district, even though they, probably get some of their walk-on sales while their, cars are being worked on and everything else. They would incur a cost as well to do landscaping and stuff. Were they okay with that? Or did you reach out to the non-auto industry dealer businesses?
We did reach out to them, and we did have participation from them, and they were very interested in seeing the corridor spruced up.
Okay.
They wanted to know how some of the auto features would relate to a non-auto site, and we told them, a standard screen wall, standard planting, standard lighting, we can do across there easy. When it came to a display pad, maybe the display pad changed to a monument sign for their facility. they liked that idea. We did not talk to all of them, but
No, I didn't expect you to, but I just wanted to get the overall feel. Were they pretty open to
Yes.
saying, yes, we want to be part of this and recognize the fact that we want it to be a consistent feel across from 91st to the 101 freeway?
Yes, and in terms of some of the space limitations, there might be a more minor execution than what we might see in some of the other auto dealer sites. But yes, they did want to have a participation in that for the continuity of the improvement. So as was mentioned, you might have a monument sign instead of a major entry feature or a lower wall with smaller planting space, but absolutely including it for a continuity of visual impact.
Okay. And then I'll ask another question, because I did go to the public meeting and it was very well attended, and listening to the residents, I had some really good questions. Are you going to touch on the flow of traffic on Bell Road in your presentation?
Actually, we didn't have a traffic study as part of the conceptual scope. So
Okay.
if it's something that council wants to move forward, then the next phase would be to do the design work to final engineer design that would include some level of traffic impact analysis to understand how some of these improvements will affect traffic, and are there opportunities for traffic mitigation, much like was looked at as part of the P83 project.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Questions, Mr. Finn?
Yeah, just a quick question. Can you go forward to the conceptual of the gateway? Yeah, that would probably be pretty good right there. Okay, so now picturing that, go back to the slide that you were just at. I'm sorry, keep going. To the one that John had you at. Keep going. Right here. So the one gateway that's right there at behind the neighborhood of where it says Sun City.
Yes.
How is that going to? I'm trying to visualize, which I'm terrible at. Ask my wife. I'm horrible at it. I'm trying to visualize what that's going to look like there, because there's really no four corners for it to.
And it may just be two tubes going over the wall, bridging the wall instead of going catty corner. We haven't gotten that far along.
Okay.
Maybe it's in the middle of the road and it's just two tubes that are running parallel to traffic, or some kind of a steel element. It's not exactly the cross going through the signalized intersection.
And any concerns with that neighborhood there, with any of that going on?
Well, yeah, a couple of things. First of all, what we would need to do if this is something that council wants to move forward is we would have to go from the concept down to the real constructability analysis. That would be the design to final engineering. So as part of that, look at all of the actual underground utilities, look at all of the actual right-of-way space, look at all of the, are there overhead lines that need to be taken into account, and then to translate the concept into probably a modified execution based on the constructability analysis. So at that point, I would imagine there would be community meetings, just like with P83, to get citizen input as part of those more finely engineered elements. So what we've done so far is just the one community meeting to focus in just on the concepts.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to ask a question about the inverse. What if we do nothing? And so based on your history in this industry, give me some information about other auto rows. There was one in Glendale that is really no longer there, Sands, where Sands Automotive is. And, the one on Camelback and 24th Street used to be much more robust than it is now. So what happened to cause those auto dealers to move to other locations?
If I may, I have a sub-consultant here with me. His name is Jim Mullen. He's been doing auto rows all of his career. He sold most of these pieces of property to these individual dealers. May he speak to that,
Of course.
Jim?
Mayor, Council. How are we doing now? Mayor, Council, good to see you all this evening. My background, as Adam said, we've really enjoyed this project because it's It's a unique challenge. It is the first in the country to go do it right, so I commend you all for even giving this direction. Throwing up some theater banners in a new bush, that's what most people do around the United States for their auto rows. The answer to your question is most auto rows have a bell curve. They start and they stop over a period of time, and that has a lot to do with when the homes were built, and then as the homes age and the demographics shift, so does the buying, the demand for the automobile. So when we bring that locally, Camelback is actually, I'm here 30 years, and it's had two kind of swings. People might remember it in the early 90s. And the character of the dealers has a lot to do with the regionality. The Vantal organization on Camelback gobbled up some car stores when they were affordable and put money in advertising and really created the Camelback and 24th area as a valley destination. They were successful in doing that. The Glendale corridor, the city of Glendale missed a tremendous opportunity by allowing those dealers to move out to the freeway. As their primary trade area was aging, their new trade area was moving out to the freeway, and they missed that opportunity. The city did from that standpoint, and it has, so those dealers then dispersed, and they went to new rooftops. They chased the rooftops, so some of them came here to Peoria, and some of them went to Avondale. The McDowell Road Boulevard in Scottsdale, those dealerships had an interesting life because they, at one point, were the largest collection of manufacturers west of the Mississippi, 36 different brands. But what happened was Scottsdale grew north, and they couldn't go north. They couldn't go into downtown. For some of you that may have lived here a while, you might remember the Ford store where P.F. Chang is. But as they couldn't go north, they moved south to get more land, but their buyers were going farther north. And we have a state statute here in Arizona where dealers like kind can be 10 miles driving radius apart, Chevy to Chevy, Ford to Ford. So once the growth tripped that 10-mile statute, then you had a North Scottsdale hub that developed. And that, along with the new freeway and some other things, tremendously hit those dealers hard. And they also migrated or closed down. 124 acres on McDowell Road, and there'll be one dealership left next year there. So I'll finish with this thought. Peoria is the largest auto cluster by volume sales for new car sales. We know that from our research. So you have a tremendous opportunity here, and you want to preserve it. And you have every single element that makes a successful auto park. Here you have diversity of brands, you have terrific operators, you have the 101, you have this wonderful dual income, for the most part, community that allows these dealers to really do well. And so you just want to give them as much backwind as possible. There'll be a period of time where other auto malls are established, neighboring Peoria, and they're going to work hard at etching away at that business because they'll have the new rooftops. And the new rooftops are the buyers, and when we get to a certain age, we keep our cars 10 years and 12 years and on and on. So that's where that bell curve comes as an aggregate. So anything you can do to preserve this automotive cluster is really important over time, and it's very timely right now. Did I answer your question?
Somewhat. So do you believe that adding branding and a sense of place is going to prolong these car dealers in their desire to stay in this location in spite of what happens to the homes around them?
Yes, I think what's going on here, I'm sorry I didn't get to that piece of the question. What is going on here is there is an opportunity to create this as a destination. No one's done that before in the United States. No one has taken an auto cluster and repurposed it, if you will, into a destination. And if the brand is sticky and people understand it, know where it is, and you cater to markets you don't deserve, I mean the dealers don't deserve. They cater to Queen Creek, to exaggerate, because people know that the Peoria Auto District is a place to go for this feeling that's part of the brand and the hard materials and things we've talked about today. Then that will elongate that bell curve, and maybe dramatically. So I think that if you do nothing, that you will, you could certainly do a very interesting study about how that bell curve goes and what elements go into it. But at some point in time, it will tail off. And it would be our experience that the more that you put into the brand and the more that you allow everybody in the market that normally wouldn't come to Peoria and buy a car, know to come here to buy a car. Just that knowledge, especially with the internet today. You'll expand that bell curve, if you will, a decade, 2 decades, I don't know, but definitely would serve you well.
Thank
You
you.
know-
You answered my question. Thank
Okay.
you.
Just in addition to that, it's important that you understand our reaching out to the individual stakeholders, the dealerships. A lot of Jim's answer came from them. They wanted to create the destination, and they wanted, as much as it looks like competition having a Ford store next to a Chevy store and a Toyota store next to a Honda store, they want it that way because they want to get the buyer close. And after they're in the neighborhood, then, you know, they can fight over what actual car gets purchased, but they want to be known as the place where everyone can come to see everything in one stop. They want the destination that they can advertise on the internet. You know, a lot of times when folks go looking for a car, they go straight to the internet and start researching it. Well, if they can research on the internet and the internet's telling them if you go to this one spot, that's where everything is, and that one spot is very well organized and unified, that's what they asked for when we asked what can we do to help retain sales.
Great, thank you. Council, any further questions, discussion? All right, thank you. It's a great presentation. I'm interested to see what next steps are.
Perfect segue. Okay, so next steps. What a surprise. So again, very conceptual, still need to do the constructability analysis, still need to do more research as to, of the concept, assuming that's a concept that the council likes, how do we move forward still would be next steps. But should the project progress, then the planning department would look at a work program to create the overlay zone or PAD to respond to the new improvement program in terms of signage, landscaping, and the streetscape development standards. That creates the opportunity for this to go forward. And then should the project progress, then the engineering department would require funding to final design. And so then what we would do, if this is the consensus of council, is bring back to council in a regular session a request for approximately $450,000 for the engineering department to fund and manage the completion of the final engineering design. And then it would be off to the races.
So the final engineering design, would it be the final design for those icons and pieces such as that, or are you talking about drainage?
No, it'd be essentially...
Those fun things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would look at everything to answer the question of, is the concept constructible as is, or if not, what modifications would need to occur to the concept to make it constructible? And then bring that back with probably some options, some phasing, and some cost estimates.
Okay.
So going from conceptual down to the finer, granular element of understanding of the opportunity.
Council, questions? All right, so. Do you have a question? I didn't have a question. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, well, so I think what we need here today is a consensus as to if we would like him to continue to move forward as these next steps suggest and bring something back to us with some more detail. Or say no? Council? Thank you.
Well, I think we definitely should move forward, and here's why. You know what I heard over and over and over again from both of these gentlemen, I think maybe from Scott too, is Peoria is the first. Peoria is the first in the country. Peoria is the only. And that's where I like to be. I like for us to lead the charge. I mean, I had no idea that I've bought cars up there, you know, and it's just a deal. I get my car and I go home. I had no idea that one could lead the nation in car dealerships or development or whatever it is. But I think it's going to be beautiful. Just, I am a conceptual person, and I can see the concept already. It's all right, you're a money guy and I'm not, so. I think that it's well worth pursuing. I think it'll just be amazing. And when we hear the results, both directions, from an expert, a guy who's been in the trenches, why do we think we'd be smarter than that? So, yes, I think definitely I'd like to move forward with it.
Thank you. Councilmember Finn?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Where was the traffic study in this again? I am a little bit concerned about creating a destination, and, you know, we talked about the traffic flow or lack thereof. So where was that again in this study?
Being in the conceptual phase, we didn't commission one.
I know you haven't done it yet,
Yes.
but where is it in this? Is it part of that 450, or is it after that? Or?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I need. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Other comments? Are everyone okay to move forward? Yes. General consensus is move forward.
Great, thank you.
Come back. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And that's all we have in the study session.
All right. See no further business, then we are adjourned until our 7 p.m. meeting.